It's really cool to just have people in their 20s in general on this platform to, talk about real life shit that people who are 20 years old, have to deal with.
Yes, yes, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this special edition of ISD and School Detention. You're here with your host, Devonn, of course, as always. Pierce is not joining me. This is just me. I'm flying solo today. Except I actually have a very special guest. It's my first time speaking with this young man. The way this kind of came about is I really wanted to talk about the Nashville bombing. And when I put it out on Twitter, I don't have that person's name in front of me, but that person was so quick to respond and referred me to this young man, this outstanding young man who has done a great job in just being responsive to me, setting up his time, being patient, working with me. If you live in the area I live in, I'm not going to say it because people are crazy. Maybe you hate me the way I look. You're going to come kill me. I don't know. He lives, it's snowing right now. So he's been very patient with me, taking his time, making sure that we get this done properly in a safe way, and I appreciate that. Everyone, give it up for my man Frank Samuel.
Hello, everybody. How are you, man?
I'm blessed, man. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
On such short notice, that's big for me.
Oh man, Nate referred me, and I was in here. So
Nate is the man, bro. I fuck with Nate hard.
Nate is the man. That's my guy. What a cutie.
Yeah, I've actually had Nate on the show before. I don't know if you ever noticed, but I actually had him on here. He's a really good dude. And before Rona, kind of when Rona started to tail off a little bit towards August, I was actually looking to maybe do something there at NWO, but it just never came. It just never came to be. But Nate is a hell of a dude. I fuck with Nate. I love Nate. Absolutely, man. So let's get to it. What I want to talk to you about today was the Nashville bombing. Before we get started, man, how long have you lived in Nashville?
So I went to MTSU, which is in Murfreesboro, which is pretty close to Nashville, for those who don't know. Despite the fact that I think a lot of people probably know me more for music than anything, I have a degree in finance from Middle Tennessee State. So I moved down here to get my degree, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years ago, and have stayed in Tennessee ever since. I've really enjoyed my time. So I'm from Chicagoland, as most people that follow me know originally. So I've been finally getting my feet wet in the life and culture here, and have pleasantly enjoyed my time. It's great time.
That's good, man. From everything what you were telling me about Nashville, it sounds like a pretty cool place, minus everything that just happened.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing to say is that, we had tornadoes earlier this year. Honestly, it's so hard to even keep track of it this year or last year with this pandemic. Time seems to be an illusion. But Nashville is a strong community. You've seen the tornadoes, obviously the recent bombing. There's a lot that is just, affected the city. And, they say Nashville's strong, and that's not a lot. The people down here are incredibly resilient and believe in what they're building here. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind when talking about Nashville.
How are they feeling after this incident?
I have talked to quite a few friends down here, and I think a lot of them were just shocked, particularly because of how bizarre the events were. I mean, it's easy to speculate. Considering everything now, I mean, if you're on social media, it's very easy to I'm going to say be conspiratorial, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps it's just a after effect of the internet and the ability to share so much information so fast. But a lot of times, these things kind of sort themselves out, I feel like, rather quickly. But this is a very strange one, considering just how everything happened, and just everything from the RV pulling up at night to the radio thing that it was blaring out. It's just very, very strange. I think it's more confusion than anything, and I think it's the hardest for people when there aren't answers immediately, and it's important not to speculate. But I know that people want the answers because they want to be safe. Wow, a bomb. Literally a bomb. I work at Blue Water Music Publishing. That's right down the street. Thank goodness for Christmas. Thank goodness for the situation that not more people got, more people weren't hurt. I mean, it's an abomination, truthfully. It's scary, it's scary at the end of the day. But I do believe that, it won't stop people. I think, well, it's a scary thing. I think more than anything, it's left people a little bit uneasy.
How do you feel about it?
It's difficult to process, to be honest with you. I mean, the damage is extensive. In a time where, this is already hard for small businesses and things of this nature, to just have more damage. Whatever you consider the person, definitely, I can't imagine being in the mind state to just do such damage to things that aren't yours. I mean, man, like, especially in these times, I'm going to continue on my day as I have to continue on my day, being good to people and honoring what you should. But I don't know, definitely, I definitely think that you'll turn your head around your shoulder a couple more times than you may have a week or two ago.
Yeah. I don't know. Coming from up here, I really feel like, well, first of all, I remember reading about it and hearing about it, but it was like, whoa, but like it had that shock factor for me. But then I think one thing that's not really being talked about was just the fact that, well, this actually wasn't being talked about. This actual event, it wasn't mainstream news for that long. Everyone else started talking about, stimulus checks and, people getting hit in the face with bottles on social media. Like all that stuff kind of got drowned out in the news with a bunch of other stuff. And I wonder why. That's how I feel. Like, of course it's scary. But at the same time, I can say I'm kind of used to it at this point, because how many different acts of just outward violence towards the general public have we seen over the past couple years or years? You know what I'm saying? And particularly, and again, and I say this for everyone who does not know me, I'm not a racist person, but just statistics have shown that some of these actions happen from like white males. So when this stuff kind of happens, I'm just kind of like, I'm not surprised, because this shit's been kind of school shootings, bombing, stabbing, stuff like this happens, and I wasn't really shocked by it.
I mean, I think that there's a couple parts to break this down. That's actually, I think you bring up an interesting point. I'm not. I think. Oh yeah, wow, there's a lot of parts to this question. Let's start a couple places. I think the one thing that's difficult today for people like
Say it again.
How old are you?
Oh, sorry, I'm 24.
24. Okay, I'm 24 too. I was in an age where I basically had the ability to consume on my phone or on the internet for as long as I've been alive. Basically, I kind of in the age of just constant information, and the problem arises where we normalize these things in our head, and because that. It's easy to read in the news that, I think it was 4 people were injured, however, and then they give you a number for the deaths, the injuries, and the building is destroyed. And it's really easy to consume those as numbers. But those are lies. Those are businesses. Mm-hmm. That's the entirety of like people's existences can be ruined by the maliciousness of some person for whatever reason. Doesn't really, for whatever reason that man decided to do what he did, it was to the detriment of dozens of other people. And that inconsiderate is just that lack of consideration is just purely an evil. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You can't frame it any other way.
Yeah.
I definitely, I've seen. I read some reaction to it. I personally tend to just more to make sure that friends and people are okay versus, all of, some of the speculation. But I definitely, personally, and try to urge people to make sure that when these atrocities happen, that you have to watch the way you consume things, or make sure that your heart doesn't get hard because these are real people, and these are lives that are being affected. And if we grow callous to that, I mean, the person presumably was in the van when it exploded. It's over for him. But there's plenty of lives that are continuing on that will be struggling because of this. And if we harden our hearts, we're not going to be able to help the people who are affected, which is what we should do as fellow human beings. And so I always want to be extra careful to say it might not be surprising, and you're right, because that's the way that we've kind of been trained in some way, right?
Conditioned, I believe, is a word, because you sign up for training. You don't sign up for this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been conditioned. That's a great choice. And I think that we have to be extra careful to make sure that we realize the humanity in these events and the tragicness of it. We don't want to normalize this type of thing. This shouldn't be the new normal. And if we treat it as such, it will become that. And I don't want to live in a world where it's like that. And so I refuse to think that these things are normal. And and you're right, it is hard to be shocked, but there's got to be something that we do as people to make sure that we don't grow too hard to these things, because these tragedies shouldn't happen, and you should be an advocate for these things not to happen, and do your part. There's a lot of people out there. Even if you're doing a small part, a lot can change if you want to be involved. I mean, look at we had the Black Lives Matter march in Nashville. One of the most beautiful things I got to see. I mean, just people coming together to say something. That's powerful. That is powerful.
It was. The protests across the entire country was just really something beautiful to see. I was fortunate enough to be part of the one in Chicago. And man, when I tell you, Frank, I'm not good with streets in Chicago, so I'm not even gonna sit here and act like we knew where we was at and where we were going. But we started downtown and we went up and down. I believe it was Lakeshore Drive. We marched for a good 3 miles, what it seemed like, and it just felt really powerful to be there. And I think it just shows you in this type of year we've had, because I don't know how, we've lived two different lives, I think, but I think newsworthy. I think that in our lives, since me and you were the same age, that this has been like one of the craziest years ever in terms of just news, whether it be George Floyd, Kobe Bryant, COVID, the civil unrest, different things like that. I think this year has been one of the most hectic years we've had, at least in our lives, that I can remember.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree. And there's a lot to take in. I mean, I've already said that for me, the time, I can't even tell time anymore. It feels like it's been so much in so little time, but yet this year feels like it never will end. And there's been a lot of tragedies. One to stomach. Kobe was so sad. George Floyd was an atrocity, an absolute atrocity. And I guess the one thing that it makes me think about is I really just don't want to end up being a bystander to all this. And I mean, like, some certain things, like, Kobe was sad, and that's just something that we just have to take in. And, we lost a legend there. But there's other things like George Floyd where, I have the ability to speak on it, or, to participate, right? Where you can, like, some of these tragedies, I can say, no, that's not how this is going to be. Or I can, raise awareness, or, get out and do something. And I think it's been hard for people because there's a pandemic. So, like, what are you supposed to do? So it's just been an absolute clusterfuck of just trying to manage all of it. I think it really weighs. The other things, I think, I'm not particularly always that great at answering phones. I'm pretty spotty. But even now, you have to really try and connect with people too, because mental health and other things. A lot of people have been stuck at home and don't have really ways to socialize. And I think humans are generally pretty social creatures, and it's taxing on people beyond. On top of all these other tragedies too, I think it's happening in a place where we're physically and mentally weak. This is a trying time for humans. It is all of us together. This is a trying time. It's not easy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the way I kind of akin this year up is kind of like, how I don't know if you ever run or walk with ankle weights on. You ever done that?
I have.
So once you take those ankle weights off, don't you feel like you can fly?
You can you could put on the PF flyers and go, my friend.
That's what I kind of think 2020 is going into 2021. It's like, all right, guys, like let's take our ankle weights off. And I feel like, and obviously it's not going to disappear in 2021, but I feel like now that we've kind of got this first hit out the way, been punched in the face a few times, now we're like, all right, well, I know I get punched in the face. I know I bleed, but I'm not dead yet, so let me get back up.
Yeah, amen to that. I'm hoping that this, you never know, but I really do hope this is a time that can bring people together and they, not learn from it, but use this as a token of personal strength and the ability for individuals and us collectively to overcome these tragedies. So yeah, I think that's a very healthy perspective to take on this whole situation.
Definitely. Now, gearing ourselves back to the Nashville bombing, how close were you to the actual bomb site?
I actually was nowhere near. I was actually in Chicagoland at the time.
Oh wow,
So,
you were local.
So yeah, I was. I had done everything I had to do so I could go see my family. I don't get to see them very often, obviously now, considering the times. So it was just a shock. Just afraid, it was just more of a panic to make sure that no one I knew was over there.
Have you ever seen anything like this in the Nashville area before?
I've seen some of the destruction from the tornado, which is rather sad. But nothing like this in my experience. I don't think a lot of people see bombings in places that they go walk on the sidewalks. As I said, I'm supposed to work in eyesight. I will be, two places we'll look down the street and see where it happened. That is shocking.
Yeah, that's definitely something that would make you think twice about going anywhere, though.
Exactly, and yeah, no, it definitely does. It's a scary thought because who expected this on Christmas morning, 6 a.m. Very strange.
How do you feel about the way the news covered it, or lack of coverage, I guess?
Well, first off, I think the fact that we've had nothing from the White House about this is awful. What? Truthfully, this is. No word about this. There's a bomb that went off in a major metropolitan area. We're not going to talk about it. Okay, so that's terrible. I think that Governor Lee laughing at the press conference. There's been some strange things all about this, and plus, I think that there's a lot of people that didn't even know. So, I think you have to be very, very careful with the news because at the end of the day, whatever you consider journalism is in the modern sense, I believe, is dead. Most of the time, people find news, especially mainstream news, is finding things that are, it's clickbait at the end of the day. They want people to watch the news and be entertained, ultimately. So whatever's popular in the news cycle is what they're going to go with, and whatever doesn't fit that agenda is not going to be talked about. Why was this kind of just skimmed over? I don't think I'm smart enough to know, but very strange and definitely not enough coverage.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And as much as it's something that doesn't always, and even though nobody else died except for the bomber, thank God, this is still something that is just like, bro, what the hell, And typically, mainstream media and news always cover sad shit, like always, whether it be people getting shot and killed or any news about what's going on in the office, stuff that makes people stress out and really be sad. But this wasn't as popping as it should have been,
I don't, and again, this is kind of like and again, this is kind of the dangerous dynamic, right? Like this, you don't want it to be entertainment, right? It is, the news does like sad things sometimes, and I think generally, I would probably say, and again, you don't want to think it's entertainment because it's live, and it's striking the balance between giving it the proper coverage so people can be knowledgeable of things they need to know for the betterment of society. Um, but I don't think that's how news is set up these days. So I don't really, in my brain, at least the way I can see, I don't necessarily understand why it had the coverage that it did, and that makes me suspicious. I will hold my tongue until more is to be known. I mean, I think as last I read that they were searching a house in Antioch, Tennessee, the very strange man. He had given over the deed of his house to somebody. Had license to to bomb materials and stuff. So whether he's disgruntled doesn't matter. It's an act of domestic terrorism. He decided to blow up a metropolitan area, and we need to, they need to take investigate to the fullest extent so they can make sure tragedies like this don't happen again.
I completely agree. And I was having a discussion with someone before I came and talked to you, and they were saying how they feel like it could not. Let's not always jump to terrorism, but if we really look at it, if you look at the whole scene, because I did some more reading before I came and I got on the phone with you, but he also, I don't know if you noticed, but there was like a robotic voice coming from the RV right before he set the bomb up.
Which is strange because it literally gave people, I think it was like 15 minutes to evacuate, and they did. Which is, again, kind of I mean, if it was just to be that it blew up, it would, I guess maybe more straightforward. But considering that, it doesn't make exactly sense. I know that they blew up the switchboard for AT&T, which has caused phone coverage to be out in a lot of places here for AT&T users. To my knowledge, and I got a lot of people. That was the scariest part. Is like, you're trying to message people, and you don't even know if they have service.
Yeah, exactly. His sorry, I mean to cut you off, but his dad actually works for AT&T, or used to.
Yeah. So there's there might be a connection there, but I mean, regardless, I mean, it doesn't. I think the thing is that I'm not huge about semantics. I've seen a lot of arguments with the use of the terrorism word. And granted, in terms of the media coverage, I completely agree. But let's just not whatever word you're going to use. If you try to pretend that lives weren't affected, businesses weren't affected, you're just an asshole, and you really need to get your priorities straight. Ultimately, this person did major damage to people's lives, and that is awful. That is evil. That's wrong. And that needs to be addressed. Simply. End of story.
Definitely. I think that also one thing that was weird about it was that he played that song. And I went and I listened to I don't know if you listened to the song, but the song he played, I went back and I listened to it. Do you think that song, this is just me spitballing. Did you listen to the song at all?
I have not actually.
Okay.
I have not. It was, to me, it's kind of I would say a minor detail, but I guess, to be honest with you, considering the damage and stuff, I didn't think too much about it, but I'm interested. If you listened to it, what was your take on it?
I did listen to the song, and it's a very cheery song. It's a happy song. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's about, finding happy, and it kind of has some meaning to it, so as to why he kind of did it, because reading up on, again, this is from CNN.com, his neighbors were saying that he was always a loner. He was alone. He didn't really wasn't really in anybody's faces. He kind of kept to himself. But then the part of the song, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to get the article pulled up right now. He's talking about, part of the song talks about being lonely, but going to the city to kind of cure that loneliness. It says right here, it's a quote from CNN. Confusingly, the park vehicle also broadcast a song, Petula Clark's 1964 cheerful hits, keyword cheerful, downtown, about how the busty city, the bustle of a city can cure a person's lonely blues. Can cure a lonely person's blues. God, I can't read tonight. The song begins like this. When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and hurry seems to help, I know, downtown. So I find it interesting that, and again, I'm not an investigative journalist per se, but I like to know my facts. I like to figure things out. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Frank. But it's like you go downtown, you're a recluse. You don't really hang out with that many people. You go downtown, you set up to do this deed to create damage, which is we've known it's an act of terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
You clear out a bunch of people. You're alone. So, because he was alone when that happened, because he gave everyone the warning. And then you go downtown to find this peace or solace that you're talking about in this song, and then you kill yourself.
I mean, it is certain. I guess to say that in a lot of ways that it's been framed between, his dad working at AT&T, it definitely looks like it may be a disgruntled person, basically finding a way out, which is always very sad. Mental health is a real issue. But, even regardless of that, it's a balance because mental health is a real thing. I'm diagnosed bipolar. I can relate to the struggle of mental illness, and things of that nature. But again, though, it's hard to excuse an act that like involves others, to the damage of others. And I'm not even really talking about the taking the life part, because that's not really what I'm trying to refer to, but more so in just the harm to others. So, perhaps that is, I definitely don't think that is a implausible, assumption to come to, considering the facts that were provided. And I would believe that they will probably release stuff pretty soon. I don't think they want to keep the public waiting too much longer, especially considering the bizarre nature of all this. But I really am. There are places out there that I think are taking donations and stuff for the businesses that have been affected. I've seen some GoFundMe circulating, and other things like that too. So I think probably the best course of action right now is to see if you make sure that your family and friends, if they're in the area, are safe, and figure out a way to help if you have the ability to. Because I know it is trying for a lot of people right now, but to help in any way you can. But yeah, it definitely from all that, it definitely sounds like that could have been it. But again, hopefully we'll get some more news soon.
Definitely. Now, this is my toughest question of the night. Toughest.
I'm ready.
Have you? Well, first of all, before I even get into this, how do you identify racially?
I am white. I'm Caucasian.
Okay. As a white man, have you ever caught any backlash or anybody talking crazy to you, or assuming things of you, or anybody taking things out on you because of other acts of domestic terrorism from other white men?
No. I mean, no. I mean, like for like this, I can't say that I'm personally affected because some person decided to do some wrong in Nashville. I don't think I've had backlash for that, and I don't think that generally good people do that. I think the idea is that good people want good to happen, and we all should be on that side of the fence, So I can't say that I've personally had backlash for events as this. I definitely, yeah, that would probably be my answer to that. But I definitely think that good people just realize what's good and what's not, and this isn't good. And if you separate it in that way, I think you can work. If good people want good things to happen, then some of the other barriers kind of go away. Why there's a Black Lives Matter movement in Nashville and all types of people show up, because we all know what's the right thing to do in that situation. We know where our voices should be, and therefore we go and say it together. And I think if you try to keep it that way and making sure that your brothers and sisters in humanity and, whoever, however they identify, whatever, ethnicity or race they come from, like, they all matter. Like, it's very, very simple. It's not hard math. So if you want the best for everybody, these things should be crystal clear to people in the causes they fight for and the things that they do and how they treat people. So I can't say I've personally faced backlash. I can't speak for other white people, But I definitely think that you need to make sure you're on the right side of the coin on not only this issue, but a lot of issues that have come up this year.
Definitely, that's a good point, and I'm glad that you're not facing any backlash, because that question for me, I formulated that because when 9/11 happened, everyone was beginning to, not everyone, let me not generalize because I know I didn't, but I know a lot of people here in America specifically, anybody who looked like of any Middle Eastern descent, they were calling them terrorists. They were calling them, but do you know what I'm talking about? Calling them
Yeah,
terrorists, bombers, all that
sure.
different kind of stuff. And I wanted to see if that was happening to you or to the white men in this country because of certain acts that are done by others.
I like that question for that reason, to be honest with you. I think it's probably the answer. I think kind of reveals it. I think probably reveals itself what you're getting at with the question too.
That's good. I didn't want you to think I was trying to trap you or get
Oh
some
no,
clickbait out of you or anything. Absolutely
hard,
not.
good hard questions. That's what I think more often than not. I mean, there are certain things in this world that are wrong, and I'm really not going to entertain things that I think are wrong because why do that? I've got time to do better things. But and truthfully, but it's good to have discourse like this. It's good to be able to discuss things like that because they reveal things about society. And if you don't like, if people aren't sharing, I mean, and this goes for everything. If dismissing people's experiences is devastating to society as a whole because we need to hear those stories, even when they're not things that happen. We need to know those things so they can be corrected. And I said, good people need to stand up and fight for those things. But you have to ask those questions. So you can figure out like why are certain things happening, and why do people react the way they react. That's really important. So
Yes, definitely. Now, do you have faith in the country or faith in the government to see if they can try to like fix this issue or try and see if they can address it? Because obviously we don't like we talked about earlier in the conversation. We don't know why the hell this happened. There's a number of reasons. Obviously, this man did not leave a note or just say, "Hey guys, I'm gonna do this on Christmas because of that." Obviously, he ain't say that. But do you have faith in this country to maybe figure out why this happened and possibly come to a type of solution to fix this?
if I was to go full conspiracy nut on you, I'd say they already know. No, I'm just kidding. But
He scared the shit out of me. I was like, "Oh shit, he's gonna go here." Okay, I'm prepared.
I'm not. I do like a good conspiracy theory and now and again, but I'm gonna avoid getting letting these conspiracy theorists get their rocks off right now. So, but yeah, I think it's best to be cautious in and how you go about it. And I mean, in terms of government, I think that I think probably more than ever. I mean, we just had a stimulus bill. The Mitch McConnell, I think, just vetoed or wouldn't allow past the $2,000 stimulus. I mean, there are some people that I think just are entirely let down in government, personally. However, I think that this is two things. First off, go out and vote. If you have a voice,
Period.
make sure you go out and express that because honestly, and this is the young people like us. You know who goes out and votes? Old people go vote.
And
That's what happens.
and then our country ends up on a bunch of rules and laws that benefit old people, not us.
Exactly. So if you have your voice, go speak it. The second thing is I don't trust the government for anything. To a degree, or not necessarily that. I mean, but I definitely think that we can go vote. That's one of our rights. That's a way that we can voice ourselves. But I think one of the big keys is that you have to realize that there is so much influence that you can have in your life, and I don't think that is explicitly expressed enough. There are people that and I know that you can be a positive or negative influence to constantly, every single day. Family, friends, coworkers, fellow musicians, fellow artists, whatever it is that you have connection with and are interacting with. You have the ability to display what you believe, to display what you think is right and wrong, to show them through your actions. And you get to constantly do that every single day. And as an individual, as a single entity, in the universe that I constantly perceive and am amazed at. It blows my mind, how much we dismiss the effect that we all have and the things that we could do if we all exercise our ability to change things on a personal level. So the government is supposedly created by us, right? Or for us. I mean, you could argue that whether they do or don't. I think that my expertise is probably in singing more than any of these other topics, so it's the whole Ja Rule thing, right? It's the whole Dave Chappelle Ja Rule thing, Where's Ja Rule at? I'm Ja Rule, right? So, I will express these things, to be taken with a grain of salt. But I do really believe that if we want to make change, that, the first place that you can start is in the people that you have influence over. Being, checking in on your friends now, making sure that maybe they aren't lonely. And again, I'm not assuming anything about the person, but I'm saying is that you and I have the ability to make sure that the friends that we have aren't lonely right now in a very lonely time. Have you done that today? Ask yourself that question. Ask yourself a lot of questions about the things you're doing and who you're trying to, and how you're trying to be a positive influence in the world. And I think that if we did that more often, I think that it would work its way up. And I think that that's something is that, as I said, like, you could go vote, go do the things that you're supposed to do, but be very mindful of the ways that we almost dismiss that we also have influence in, and take a lot of care in making sure that you also are doing those things, because they're not discussed explicitly, and I think that they're overlooked.
Wow. Frank Sammy for president, everybody.
Don't start.
Nah, but those are honestly, bro, those are some really good points. My favorite rapper is J. Cole. One thing about his song, I don't know if you ever heard the song Change, but when his songs talk about the change happens right inside of you. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm sorry, that is not change. That is goodness gracious. That is High for Hours. Oh my gosh, I'm so dishonored right now. I am dishonored as fuck.
Man, you've been working all day, man. You get a pass here and there.
I did work like a 9-hour shift today, so I guess that's my saving grace. But still, no excuses. But the change definitely does start inside, and I think that the more mindful we become, not too mindful, because then everyone gets offended about everything, and it just becomes a clusterfuck. The more mindful we become, but I think especially we want to be mindful of sending out tweets and say these thoughts. I think, like you said, actions are important too, and educating others. I feel like sometimes that now that we have such a plethora of knowledge at our hands and our phones and our brains, and we're so woke and quote unquote woke, even though I don't like that word, and we're so enlightened to so many different things that we didn't know before. A lot of people are getting an attitude where they're just like, oh, well, I'm better than you because I know this and I know this. But instead of us, I know it's a thing among our generation, among our age group, they definitely do that. And I think instead of acting like we're better than other people and act like we know so much more, let's just take the time to sit down and talk to each other as individuals and educate each other. So when someone says something wrong, depending on what they say, we could you could chastise them and get down on their ass for it, but why not be like, hey, actually, this is what you need to say, and this is what's actually right.
And it's a tough thing for some people, and I think it comes down to truthfully a superiority complex in cases, because it's like if you think you're right on a topic, and I'm trying to think, trying to pick a not serious example for this thing, but let's say I was like, I think my favorite rapper is maybe probably Andre. Probably one of my favorite rappers. I'm a huge Outkast fan, right? And we could and in some cases though, if I like Outkast more than J. Cole and you like J. Cole more than Outkast, there's no morality tied to that, right? I don't think you've done anything wrong by being a J. Cole fan. Now, if you're a Slipknot fan, that's different. No, but no, I'm playing, but not really, but maybe. Who knows? That's for the next one. But in some cases, there's no morality tied to that debate, right? And so sometimes these debates have morality tied to them, where people see them as objective rights and wrongs. And that's where it gets tricky, because where do you bend? Where is the point where you can say that you're willing to discuss something with someone that you don't agree with them, when it starts to get into moral territory, right? So And that's where it gets difficult, because how do you approach that? And I'm not saying I am, coming with all these solutions, but it is a difficult thing, and there's a lot of meditation and mindfulness that I think comes into being able to do that. I do, however, believe that humanity gets better when we all get better. So there's something to be said about making sure that, being careful where you make enemies, because you can have people that can, once blind and I can see, to quote, the biblical scriptures, and said a million other ways by a million other people. But there's a point. It's enlightenment, right? And so separating people so far where you just cast them out is difficult too, because you'd hope that they could be better and would benefit society and humanity as well. So it is a balance. It's a difficult question that, again, I don't think we ask ourselves enough. How do you have those discourses when you think that the other person is doing a moral wrong? And that's hard. That's a hard question.
It is, because some moral wrongings and some things that, because everyone's morals are different. Everyone views things differently from a more ethical place where they're raised differently, whatever. So what some people may do, because someone may look at, say for example, I'm gonna pick something really petty, right? Say in my house, say in my house, we put the forks. Fuck, no, that's not even a good example. Okay. Say in my house, when we put the cups in the cabinet, we put them faced the open side down. But in your house, you put them up. So when I come over your house, I'm gonna raise hell. It's not that deep, bro. For one, it's not that deep. But for two, you look at it, it's maybe that's just the way you were raised, And I think that when we all look at things from a different standpoint, I think we have to understand that we all see things differently, and don't be upset when someone doesn't see it your way.
Yeah, and again, just the question is, where do you draw your lines, right? And how far can you go to reach out to people when you think that they're really over the line? And yeah, you're right, because I think that there is. I would say I've seen both ways where you don't want to be complicit, but you also don't want to throw away those people who could possibly come to see the light in certain topics. So I think that that's something that people got to be careful with, and you see a lot of, I'm not a huge fan of Twitter, although honestly that is how I like Twitter for certain things, I like the internet for certain things, and a lot of things I don't, but trying to express these debates on the internet sometimes very, very rarely, I think, has taught anybody anything. Just a place where people try to flex their superiority complex the most times, in my opinion anyway. So you have to be careful, but that is a very thing, and I think that, as I said, I can't give a solution exactly, because, that is, I guess that is for everyone to figure out for themselves. But I do urge people to think about that question, because that is the question of where can you debate these people? Where can you talk? Not even debate. I actually eliminate debate off that sentence. Where can you discuss? Because debate has a winner and a loser. And at the end of the day, everyone will be, when things get divided, everyone becomes a victim.
I completely agree with you, man. I definitely agree. And I think that it's up to us in our generation to lead this and to go forward and to make things better. And one step at a time. We can't make shit perfect, but I feel like it all starts with a healthy conversation. So,
keep going.
No, you go ahead. I was just saying this will be our last thing, because then we're gonna wrap up. So go ahead and say what you got to say.
All right, cool. No, I was just saying, is the last point. Yeah, just to reiterate, I think that there is, you can make change. You can make change in your personal life. There's things that you can do personally. Even when you never think that your influence is too small. The individual is so powerful. Never forget that. You can make a difference. And even if you think the difference is small, you're probably wrong, truthfully. You're probably making a bigger difference than you realize.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this special quick edition of ISD. I'll probably be doing more of these. I don't have a name for it yet. But thank you guys so much for tuning in and coming in today, man. Frank, indubitably? Is that the word? Indubitably appreciate you contacting me and hopping on the phone with me today, man. Don't hang up. I'm just going to press the stop button. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to us, man. You guys be safe. Actually, Frank, give me your social medias real quick.
You can find me on Instagram at _Frank Samuel _ and on Twitter at _Frank Samuel. Also, my website is www.franksamuelmusic.com, and you can find my music on all streaming platforms.
Yes, sir. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Be safe.
Thank you.